finally settling through the dust of round 20 and the loss against the Hawks. And, there's so many stories that happened from the game. I mean, the loss is the first part, Sam Doherty retiring. The next part, Jacob Wiedering's 200th, the third part. But there was actually a really important part of what happened in round 20, which I think hopefully puts a bow on the end of the story that has been emerging this week. And that was to do with Charlie Curnow. So in this video, I'm actually going to play 3 separate pieces of media. Well, 2, and then I'm going to quote the third piece of media around this Charlie Curnow story. So this all really started with a report by Tom Morris that Charlie Curnow was looking to explore his options potentially on the Gold Coast.
Charlie Curnow has not once but twice, or at least twice, indicated to Carlton that he wants out.
Yeah, multiple times, Gary. Not official trade request. It was on the news first, then Footy Classified.
What's the difference?
So it's a bit different. Yeah, a bit different.
Double hit. Yeah,
double hit. Tim knows it. He's been in the game long enough. It's a bit different to an official trade request, and I don't think he would do so, Charlie, and unless he believed he could get out. And clearly that looks highly unlikely, if not impossible. But Carlton's been forced to shut it down, both to him directly, but also to his management via Graham Wright. And that must be cause for some concern for Carlton supporters, I reckon, that their 2-time Coleman medalist is at the very least looking at a move, and the very most quite keen on it.
Okay, so let me just, because there's a lot of Carlton fans who are understandably upset and now querying whether he's fully in or fully out or where his mind's at. So when you say he hasn't officially requested, you've also said that he's indicated that he wants out and to play for the Gold Coast Suns. Or I haven't heard you directly, but you can tell us exactly what you said.
Yeah, well, so an official trade request is if Charlie Curnow walked into Brad Lloyd's office or Graham Wright's office and said, trade me at the end of the season. That hasn't happened.
Right.
And
what has happened then?
So conversations between Charlie Curnow and the club and senior officials, where he has suggested quite strongly that he would like to play for the Gold Coast Suns next year. Would there be a chance of that? Any thoughts on that? And it's been communicated back to him that don't even try.
Is that semantics, though, Thomas? Are you dealing in semantics? You're saying he officially hasn't, but he has asked.
No, this is how it happens, Gary, in clubland. The nuance is important. You don't always, like Christian Petrarca didn't officially request a trade last year, but he wanted out and told the club several times that was the case in conversations with them. So the semantics are actually important, and the nuance is actually very important when it comes to trades, especially for contracted players.
Okay, so is that door shut now completely?
Well, I don't think anything's ever completely shut, but if you speak to Carlton, as I have extensively, and other people around the situation, the Blues are pretty adamant that they won't be trading Charlie Curnow this year.
Yeah.
But we've heard that before, so who knows?
Really strong language, and not going to lie, my first reaction was, okay, well, where there's smoke, there's fire. And if you really think about it, I too sometimes hate the Melbourne lifestyle. I can't stand Melbourne at times. I'm grateful for Melbourne and everything that it is. I'm also not a celebrity. I'm not a footy player, and I don't have the status that Charlie Curnow does. And all you need to do is just go to the club, and if you ever see Charlie, he barely goes 5 steps without somebody wanting something from him. His time, his attention, a photo, a word, something. And the one thing I'll always say about Charlie, and I always have noticed about Charlie, is he just gives that time willingly. He goes above and beyond, especially for the kids and that next generation. And that's something I've always noticed about Charlie. So how this quote came about, who knows? But this is piece number 1. Piece number 2 was Daisy Thomas. So this is what he had to say about the situation.
There's zero chance that Charlie gets to the Gold Coast Suns. That was a feeling out, and sort of speaking to some people around the club, there was a loose understanding that they both thought someone had spoken to the Gold Coast Suns. So
it was almost if you do want to consider moving me on, I'm open to going somewhere like
No. More so the club going, hey, have you guys reached out to the Gold Coast? Because that isn't happening. And then Charlie's camp coming in and going, have you blokes reached out to the Gold Coast? Because he isn't going anywhere.
Right.
So that's good news for Blues fans and for Charlie that he's adamant, and the club's now adamant that he's staying.
Good.
But I'm with you. You can't lose TDK plus a host of other players. You've got to still manage to keep your top-end talent. I know that's a squeeze with the salary cap, and that probably means the bottom end isn't quite there, but they need to be really tactical with their recruiting.
So interesting there. And then the third piece is directly from Charlie Curnow. And this comes in the form of some quotes that he passed on to, I believe it was Riley Beveridge for afl.com.au. And basically, this is a little bit of a different situation. He's actually sought out to dispel the myth, rather than, some players that we've seen in the past who maybe appear on regular radio segments or whatever the case may be. So he's gone out of his way after the game to put this on record. And he says the following: I want to be here. I'm playing at Carlton next year. So there you go. Nothing has happened. I'll pretty much just put all my time into playing footy for this club this year and into the future. He was asked if he had spoken to the club this week about his future, and he simply replied, nah. So we have three pieces here. Piece number one, Tom Morris, a reporter, a journalist, and someone ultimately whose job it is to put things like this on the record, and obviously it generates speculation, and that's his job. Like it or not. I don't like it, but I also understand that's his job. And I think if you had to rank his trust levels between, say, Charlie Curnow, between 1 and 10, you make your own assumption there. So there's one. Number two is Daisy Thomas, who comes from the standpoint of, former player, former teammate, has some sort of connections in there as well. And so you see his quotes, he dispels the myth, or, refers to it as a myth. No one's spoken to anyone from either side, from his sources. And then you sort of think about, okay, his relationship with the actual source, Charlie, what's the trust level there? And then the third layer to this is Charlie Curnow himself, who I don't know how much more clearer his language needed to be to suggest that he'd just be staying and he wouldn't be going anywhere. So there's three layers here. And for whatever reason, maybe because we're frustrated, we're pissed off, where there's smoke, there's fire, all of that may be true. For some reason, it gets gravitated towards the first. And Tom Morris's word gets spoken as gospel, and it's a really interesting phase to be in. When things are not going well, this is what happens. When you're a team like us, like Carlton, and when things don't go well and you've had a poor season, speculation happens. And the thing with Carlton, we're one of a few clubs where if speculation starts happening, you've got a big fan base. So a lot of people talk about it. So a lot of people post about it. So a lot of people grow what might be a throwaway comment. I would also agree that the lifestyle in Melbourne's not great. I would also love to live on the Gold Coast. I would love to live out of the bubble at times as well. And I would if I was a footy player, because it's all encompassing. And especially if you're a Carlton player, and especially when you're a Carlton player with the level of status that Charlie has. He's a highly paid player. We've pinned our hopes on him. We've earmarked him as one of the key elements of the spine. He's one of the best players in the league when he's fit and healthy. He hasn't had a good year. He looks visibly frustrated. And if you go on to read the rest of the quotes, he speaks to why it's happened and what's happened, and refers to his injuries in the preseason and what's happened with the team. So there's clearly frustration. I think it would be crazy to suggest that players are not frustrated. Everyone's frustrated. So I just find this really interesting because he's now come out and put it to bed. And he also referred to how it doesn't affect him as much as what it does his friends and family. And then when it's your friends and family that are getting affected, naturally you feel some type of way. So I'm really mindful here. I want to be careful with it because I definitely got sucked into it a little bit. I thought, fuck, here we go. Mass exodus, away we go. But at the same time, now that Charlie's come out and made it really clear he's sticking around, well, is that the end of the conversation? Does that mean that a trade may or may not be requested at the end of the year? Anything's possible, so I'm open to that possibility. But I wanted to get your thoughts. My first question is, having seen all three layers of this story, which do you trust the most? And if whichever one you choose, why? So we'll detail this in the comments below, and I'm sure I reckon this might come up again in the off season. Something tells me, some other quote. They'll be struggling for content on Gettable or something like that, and it'll come up, and it'll be my sources tell me, and Charlie's spoken to so and so, and we'll see. But what's your take on this situation? We'll chat about it below and go from there.